Mm-hmm.
All right, everyone. Sorry about that. This is part two right here on your Wednesday night sports delight, the platform sports talk show. I am your boy Smooth, along with
Funny.
when it's about sports
It becomes our business.
and business just picked up. Part two, Bunny, how you do?
I'm still here. Glad to be alive. Just had another birthday, so I'm glad to be in the land of the living.
Oh yeah. How was your birthday?
That was cool. Just at my parents' look back to your patio, chilling with a couple of people. That's it. Social distance, mask, and
Now
we was
think about it.
cool,
How
chilling.
come I didn't get an invite?
That's a very good question.
I know that's what I do on the show
And that is a
is
right.
bring
Right.
good
I'm like, why
questions.
didn't you get? Yeah, because I don't have an answer. I really
Oh,
don't. Especially
oh,
because you don't even stay far from them. I
mm.
don't know.
I
That
wonder
is
why.
all to my head and not my heart.
Yeah, it's all good. I
I'm
know.
showing my age.
I realize that your heart is in a good place, and everybody on the platform sports talk show know you that deal. So it's all good. It's all good. Hopefully you have
I mean,
some.
seriously though, we talked about that list. Why did we? And I'm not saying we literally did nothing but just sit outside. My bad.
Yeah, I would have came in with my platform sports talk show mask ready to go.
Should have, yeah. Because literally outside. I don't like to do inside events.
There we go.
I'm not. So that Rona gone. Mm-mm.
And I see Miss Williams now. She says that she can hear us, and she says, "Hi,
I
Fred.
miss
Hi, Bunny.
William.
How you doing, Miss Williams? Shouts out to you for being such a loyal fan, and for
Loyal.
all those
Yes.
watching for the first time. This is your Wednesday night sports delight. We've been going on strong for 3 years consistently every Wednesday, and recently because we have a nice influx of guests and their scheduling, we'll add a Thursday in. And for Bunny, she's been here for about a month and some change now, getting acclimated, put her stamp into everything. And shouts out to our third member who is not here tonight, but he plans to be with us tomorrow, and that's Stan. He's out there getting that money the legal way. So shouts out to you, Stan. And while y'all watching, on the bottom of your screen, go ahead, follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, go on YouTube, subscribe, click on that
Bell.
because anytime we go live,
You get notified.
there it is. There it is. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Like I said, the show started a little bit later because of the audio issues, but now it's all together. Tonight, no, I'm sorry. Today has been an incredible day of sports, and the night is still young. 8 baseball games being played this evening. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sorry, today. Then tonight, the NBA Finals starting in the next about 40 minutes or so.
Mm-hmm.
Man, as a sports fan, how excited can you really feel right now?
Actually, we could rewind back to a Monday night football in a mix as
The
well.
incredible
That started
game.
off the sports week. We already had the NFL game till Sunday, but Monday's night football game really got the sports week really going. So yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely an incredible game. Shouts out to Patrick Mahomes. Say, I don't want to say Pat Mahomes because I don't want to have his mother,
Mama
go.
come check you. Mm-hmm. He said, boo. That is not what I named my baby. You better
Right,
call him Patrick.
right.
I said, okay,
Said I need them to stop calling him Pat. It's Patrick. And then they
mama.
got they got word of it. The rest of the game, Patrick Mahomes.
Not how mamas are, baby. Hey, what's my baby name? You better call him my name, my baby.
There it
Mamas don't
is.
play.
There it is. Everybody, once again, please feel free. Bring them comments, them questions. This show is all about y'all. We showing love. We giving this man flowers, his roses, after we bring them on. So let's get them shares going. Let's get them comments. Let's interact with each and every one of y'all on the platform Sports Talk Show. Now, I brought up early. Let's go ahead and pull it up on the screen here. Tonight, we have the NBA finals, the Lakers and the
Lake
Miami
show.
Heat. The Lake Show and the Heat playing in a bubble in Orlando. Man, so many incredible storylines to this series. What are your thoughts on just initially thinking about this series?
I actually was excited that Miami won, but honestly, if Miami or Boston won, both still would be a good matchup for the Lakers. I know there's storylines between LeBron and his former team, LeBron against Pat Riley, LeBron. I mean, everything around LeBron, only a little bit with AD and Jimmy Buckets. And hey, I just want to see some good fought off basketball on this court, and I'm ready to see a winner crowned.
Yeah, and you think about LeBron's past, being on the Heat, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, etc. So this has to be probably the most personal NBA Finals in LeBron James' career. Do you agree with that?
I can see that. I can yes and no, because again, personal is also when he went back to Cleveland and he made sure he lived up to his promise to bring them a championship. So that was personal too, because he loved his hometown so much, well, semi hometown, and wanted to bring them a championship too. So I can see both of those being like really, really personal and meaningful to him. But I will give a shout out to Miami, even though they got Jimmy Buckets and a Hero and a couple other players.
Right.
They in general been playing team ball though. It hasn't been like that one person that's been dominating. Like they're doing it collectively. That's why I was like Spoelstra. I said this, a few weeks on the show. He don't get enough credit, and that's why Riley said he's sticking with his coach. Whether LeBron was on the team, wasn't happy or not, he is sticking with his coach, and Spoelstra is proving that he is a good coach.
Right, right. And I'm glad you brought that up because those years that LeBron James and Bosh and Wade were all together, everybody was saying, "Oh well, anybody can coach them and win a championship." The whole nine. And once LeBron and them's gone, let's see if he's really a good coach. And I was always saying because of his pedigree of being under Pat Riley for all those years, Spoelstra knows what he's doing. He wasn't like a David Blatt, with the Cavaliers or other coaches. He knew what he was doing. He had a solid foundation. So you see up to this year, they got Jimmy Butler, like you said, Tyler Hero, and now they're in the finals. Now, with that being said, what are your thoughts on this series? Do you feel Miami has a chance to win this series?
Of course, anybody has a chance if you show up. Now, the odds of you actually winning it all, yeah. But I'm going to call it out now. Lakers in 6, or will it go game 7? I'm still on the fence. Okay. Definitely 6 games, but it may go to 7.
Yeah, I'm going to go and stick with the trend that they've been doing. Each series, they've only lost 1 game. So I'm going to go ahead and stick with that and call it a gentleman's sweep.
Wait a minute, because you're going with the trend, and the trend had the same squad and personnel and chemistry like the Heat been rocking with.
Yep.
It's not the Nuggets now, even though they always used to coming back being down 3-1.
Yeah.
This is not. This is going to be the toughest competition in this bubble that the Lakers have seen night after night after night. I'm telling you, ain't no gentleman sweep on this.
And on the other end, think about Miami. They have not faced a team with all of this height that the Lakers are going to bring.
Okay. All this height. But like I just said.
Not height. Height. Like AD.
This?
Exactly. AD. Okay. Dwight. JaVale McGee. You still got LeBron. LeBron. This team is different than what they've been facing throughout the playoffs. And AD is playing on a whole nother level right now.
This is what AD said. This is what my game is this whole time. This AD is really speaking a lot lately. I give it to him. I mean, we always say he was an all-star, but like he separated himself from how LeBron's game is all that. AD is like, I'm holding my own. I'm showing y'all what I've been talking about all these years.
Right.
But as that Miami not facing that type, yeah, that's true.
So
I still don't. It's not gonna be a quote unquote walk in the park either. The Lakers ain't see.
Oh no,
like,
it'll be a battle.
You talking about 1 game that they go? Nah, I easily see 2 games that he gonna win, maybe 3.
Okay. Well, look forward to it. It starts tonight. If LeBron wins this championship, what are your thoughts about him now? I mean, what would be your thoughts about him if he did win another championship?
I'll try to sum this up shortly because people like to debate with the Kobe, LeBron, MJ. It still doesn't change. He's a great player. It does not change. And LeBron, awesome, this and that. But I still put Jordan above him. One of the things for me, I know it's a different game of basketball from then and now, but still, even if all the fouls or hand check and all that stuff is not even going on now, so that actually works in Jordan's favor. Jordan went to the finals and won every time he played in it.
Has not
LeBron
lost.
can't say that. And Jordan had his right hand man Pippen the whole time. LeBron has had to change his pieces a few times, so he has worked with different personnel, was able to pull it off. So I give him that, but I still give the edge to Jordan all day.
So
I never take it away LeBron's greatness.
So
he's still not gonna be better than Jordan me.
So you brought up Jordan had his right hand man. Is AD the best teammate LeBron James has ever had in regards to being on a regular season team?
The way he worked with D Wade throwing Bosh, that was good too. Now, and specifically, I guess with D Wade, I won't take that away. And this is what 1.5 seasons. I say that because LeBron was injured last season. I can't say that just yet. Too early for me. Everybody else can be on that bandwagon, but tour because again, him and D Wade, they did. I mean, they lost a couple and they won a couple together.
Right.
So,
right. All right. And we didn't talk about this last week, but of course, Giannis Antetokounmpo won the MVP 2 years in a row. Do you feel they got that right?
I'm still debating. I know LeBron was mad he didn't get more votes. He didn't say he should have won necessarily, but he said he should have got more votes, and that is true. I definitely think it was LeBron hating going on. As far as him getting MVP, I mean, I could see it. There's nothing wrong with it. I just do think LeBron could have got more first place votes. Now the next question though, he got Defensive Player of the Year, right, and MVP. Right?
Yep, that's correct.
So, personal accolades or championship? Which one?
And you already know. You already know LeBron James is big on the championship. He can care less about an MVP as long as he get the championship.
And Kobe was like that too. Rest in peace.
Right. So, hey, like you said, LeBron should have gotten more first place votes. I think the correct winner. Giannis was the correct guy to win the MVP. But LeBron should have had more love with them votes.
Like I would have rather seen it be closer than what it was, definitely.
And then last thing before we bring on our special guest, he's waiting, and we definitely appreciate it. Is LeBron James officially passing over the torch to AD?
I can see that. I mean, that's in the cards anyway when they brought on AD. But you're talking about officially. I mean, once they lift up that championship trophy, then I think it'll happen. He can't do anything right now. I don't care if all the winning AD game been on point. Like just said it, LeBron like them rings. So
yeah,
get this ring, and then you can say okay.
And then
fair enough.
And then as I said last week or 2 weeks ago, the Lakers aren't going to go far if AD isn't dominating. And that's what he's been doing, and now they are in the finals. So, once again, this is the Platform Sports Talk Show. I am your boy Smooth, along with
Bunny.
And now, without any further ado, the reason why a lot of the new people are tuned in for the first time on the Platform Sports Talk Show, this man here, it is, this man here, former St. Louis Battlehawks president of the XFL. St. Louis Battlehawks, once again, we have Kurt Hunzeker on the show. Kurt, how are you doing?
Welcome, Kurt.
Hello, and thank you for having me. I'm doing well.
Great,
awesome.
great.
If you want to, I can start an online petition just like this to remove that former president and just say president. I can get it started right now. Just tell me now. I get it going.
I certainly will not stop you.
Right.
And we had this talk prior to the show, but we're loving your backdrop with the jerseys, the Freese and Wainwright, and the pictures. We love it.
Yeah. All the tickets from the 2011.
Nice.
Oh, that's the ticket?
So, yeah. So I used to work at Rawlings.
Oh, really?
And
Okay.
It was my second year back in town, and they made the playoffs. I'm like, I'm totally going to go. My seats were in right field bleachers. So on full, we had no idea what was going on. We saw Cruz run back. We saw the ball come down. And then we just saw the reaction of everybody down the third baseline. And then we saw the ball start to trickle away towards back towards the infield. And then we started cheering. But that game 6 will forever be the greatest sporting event I went to as a fan.
Man,
I could understand that wholeheartedly. Whew.
that's awesome. That is awesome. And it's once again, it's an honor to have you on our show. So thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
And with that,
good. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to this.
Oh yeah, definitely our pleasure. So, Bunny, you want to go ahead and do the honors? What is our first question we always ask our guests?
When did you first fall in love with sports? In general, sports.
Excellent starter.
I mean, you don't have to show your age.
I don't.
No, go ahead. Go ahead and do it.
Yeah, it was early in life. Let me put it this way. I think I learned how to do math by keeping score at Old Bush Stadium with my dad and my older brother. And that's keeping score at a baseball game is a complete lost art. But between that and I knew every Cardinals player by their number. I knew every pitcher in the National League by their number because that's the only thing that they marked on the scorecards back then. But I absolutely fell in love with the logos, the team logos that were on the outfield wall at Old Bush. And that has carried through to this day. I think sports logos I gravitate towards them. They mean so much to me. That's why I was so terrified of what the Battlehawks could have looked like.
Right.
Why I was so overjoyed at what it ended up being.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, really, really early age. And what you don't see is my towering 5 foot 8.5 frame, and a complete inability to hit a curveball. So I knew playing sports for a career was never going to be in the cards. But I certainly hustled and tried multiple avenues of how to break into the industry. And just because that's where my passion was in, and now, ironically. And it really was hammered home by the Hawks experience. And looking back at my career, it's really been in community development because sports can play such a unique role in bringing the community together. I mean, literally unity is in the name. And sports teams are like one of the few things that people, regardless of political spectrum, gender, you name it, they can rally behind a team. Good and bad. I mean, it helps to win, but I think the Cardinals, the Blues, for a very short period of time, the Battlehawks, what we're starting to see with St. Louis City SC, and especially in St. Louis, it just means more. And what those teams can do to really shepherd the community through tough times is really, really important.
So I'm glad that you brought that up because there was that time before everything was official with St. Louis City SC, that there was an issue politically with should we get the stadium? Well, first, should we get everything approved so MLS will approve us to have the city? And everyone will always say, well, we should focus on school first and the education and the safety, etc. As if, like you said before, as if sports doesn't bring people together already. So when you hear stuff like that, what's the first thing that comes into your mind? Or what do you try to say to those who feel like this should be more important than bringing sports to a sports town like St. Louis?
Well, the first thing is the simple act of listening. Boy, that a lost art.
Right.
And yeah, there's some valid points on any side of the equation. There's some valid points. What I would argue, the role of sports teams and there are economic factors, especially when you're building a facility. Where do you allocate the funds? But it's the long-term, far-reaching, not quite in front of your face. Like it's more the intangible aspects of being, a professional sports town. And when the Rams came back in '95, St. Louis was a 3 sports town, and there's like a level you attract more things, you attract more business, you attract more jobs. There's just a benefit of having that relevancy. Now, granted, St. Louis, it's one of the best markets in the country when it comes to arts. Forest Park, Gateway Arts Grounds. There's just so much to do in St. Louis, and it's really a very charitable market. It's one of the best I've ever seen. But sports just gets the relevancy factor through the roof. People are probably screaming at their television watching the game right now, much in the same way that 40,000 people were out in the streets of St. Louis watching a hockey game outside in the pouring rain last year. How a little upstart professional football team in its third game is going to have 55,000 people showing up. It's just a way it brings people together, and walk around Busch Stadium, walk around Enterprise Center, walk around the Dome when we were playing. You had all walks of life, you had all ages, and they were there smiling, and that's the uniqueness of what sports can do to a community. And I think that whoever wants to listen, I can go into greater detail about the impact, the financial impact, but just that, pulls at the heartstrings. There's just a passion that sports teams can bring to a city, and it's a passion that's, there's pride. You want your team to do well.
So
I hear what you're saying, Kurt. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Bunny. Ladies first.
Thank you. I understand what you're saying, Kurt. I think it's some people don't understand the breakdown. Like in general, when you hear multi-million-dollar stadium or multi-million-dollar venue going, and it's a lot of negative, and the city itself having issues with employment, crime, and all these negative things, and you hear money that's not going to that, people automatically just think the worst. But it just needs to be broken down. And like you say, you can go deeper into it. And I understand exactly what you're talking about, because people may not agree with me. It's like you should handle that right now, but it's a trickle down effect. You have the sports team and the economics of it, how it works, trickle down. And there's just so many moving parts behind the scenes people don't realize. They just think team, stadium, that's it. So much more. So without it being broken down, which it takes time, if somebody, as you said, need to listen to realize it's not just about money. We're ignoring you. Tax revenue comes from stadiums, even though there may be tax breaks at the beginning, but the merchandising and people, buying at venues around the stadium, all that is tax dollars the city gets, and that goes to fixing some of these issues. But of course, if it's not broken down that way, people just think negative. So here's some good points there.
And then just to add on, I'm gonna just strictly say it like this: we have, in regards to I'm saying the city of St. Louis, we have too many narrow-minded people. That's one of our biggest issues. It's too narrow-minded. They're not thinking about what sports can bring, as you said earlier, about the community, all the opportunities that it can bring for those people who may not have had an opportunity for a certain job. Having this new MLS stadium, back when we tried to have the Rams stay in St. Louis with that stadium that was being thought of by Jim Cavanaugh in the past, that was going to be plans to bring more, have these people who may not have had opportunities to have a job, or who may have been on the street more, would have had more of an opportunity to be involved in something special and see the long-term benefits. Look at like what happened with the Enterprise Center, how that was a big fight to try to get the renovations going. But once everything got renovated, all of a sudden you're starting to see NCAA, we want to come back and do this.
Wrestling, gymnastics.
Exactly. All these big time concerts, they want to come in because now look at how it looks. Like, I know you've been to the arena prior to COVID, in the Enterprise Center, but the sound system there is incredible. It looks totally different. It's beautiful inside the center. That's what it can bring, and it will bring in more money. But people are just so narrow-minded, like, oh no, we have to fix this right now because of what's going on, or what happened in Ferguson and what happened here and there. But sports in general, That's the beauty of sports because it brings the passion. Look what happened with the Blues when they won Stanley Cup.
They want some new fans and new territory they wouldn't have done without winning.
You
I'll say
know,
that much.
it was such a beautiful thing. So, but before we continue on with that, Kurt, we have a few comments here. Looks like Paparazzi by Shalene. If I have the name pronounced wrong, I do apologize.
Shalene, that's her name.
Okay,
Yeah.
she says I agree. Game 6, Kurt, was better than Game 7 of the World Series. She also says all and ode to Brown Sugar. And then Miss Williams, she says, I think the reason behind resistance to helping to fund the stadium stems from the bad deal people felt when we got the dome. Your thoughts on that, Kurt?
First, Game 6, just because we were down. I know we were down in the first inning of Game 7, but ironically, after giving up the 2 runs in the first inning, everybody's like, oh, we got them right where we want them. The fact that we were down our last strike in that Game 6,
right?
It's clutching. It's grabbing victory from the jaws of defeat. Yeah, on the second question regarding the lease at the Dome, there is still definitely scar tissue. We felt it just building this team. We immediately set forth to be very positive. We never ever said the word Rams. I mean, it's still recent history. It's not, there isn't any kind of amnesia towards what happened. I think the one thing I wish we did more, I wish there was more conversations from all vantage points, because then you actually can start building a true partnership. And I think that's the one thing that sports do best is it's almost a never-ending public-private partnership. In almost every case, maybe say for the Green Bay Packers and their stocks, teams are private business. But the impact that they bring really on every level can be felt throughout the community and maybe even in multiple states. St. Louis being a perfect example with the Metro East and Illinois. Mm-hmm. They may not get the tax benefit that a facility in Missouri would have, but they certainly get tourism. They certainly get prominence in the national marketplace. I mean, there's just so much that these sports and live events and entertainment can bring to a community. And, St. Louis with the Muni, the Fox, I mean, multiple great concert venues. I mean, there's just so much that's interconnected that is really the glue that keeps it together. And you find those key influencers, both civic leaders and people like Jim Kavanaugh, like you mentioned, the Taylor family, McKelvey and Dorsey with Square. They're investing in St. Louis, but they can't foot the whole bill. And the fact that they want to give back, and they do give back, and they're so adamant about it, that's really, I mean, any market would love to have those types of community philanthropists that, you're not going to the same well over and over again, but they're trying their best to do what's right. And they're the ones who really do an excellent job of listening and having those hard conversations, regardless of socioeconomic status, anything like that. So, yeah, I mean, I think the good news is that corridor that the new soccer stadium is going into, it was an unused corridor for the most part. And what they're going to build all around it, that district is really going to connect the dots, I mean, magnificently, from the Arch Grounds to Bosh and Ballpark Village to Enterprise, then Union Station, the aquarium, and now you're going farther west. You got the soccer, and then you're SLU and Forest Park. I mean, that central corridor will be the hub, but then all of the activity that will spoke from that, Foundry, Cortex to the north, SSM's hospital to the south. It's just, I'll listen, but I'd be hard pressed to agree with somebody saying that that's not a great deal for St. Louis City. And the fact that it's completely privately funded, I think we move on and start to celebrate what that facility and what that team will do to bring, the community together again.
And Alice
And
Williams.
his majority woman ownership too. I like that. I don't think enough people recognize that, but yeah.
Alice Williams
One of the
says,
things real quick that I think that one of the things real quick that I think gets lost is if you go on their website, you can view it in Spanish, and then you can also they have for Bosnians, because St. Louis is such a large Bosnian community. You can click on their native language, so they're providing content to speak to really the holistic St. Louis community, and that's an incredibly intelligent, savvy, smart, community-minded move. And I think and they're still 3 years away. And so the co-authoring they're going to be able to do leading up to that first game, I mean, that's going to be the hardest ticket to get in a long, long time.
right.
Just because of the way that they're going about building the team, building the brand with the community, and putting city in the name. I mean, everything about it has been done exceptionally well.
Yes, it has. And Alice Williams says she agrees that sports bring jobs, especially entry-level jobs to a community. Same thing with the Chaffetz on a smaller scale. Same thing as the Enterprise Center. Then she says placement of the new soccer stadium is great, which I definitely agree. Pretty much Enterprise, Bush Stadium, next to Union. You can't go wrong with the placement of where the soccer stadium is.
Yeah, it's still downtown, so that's really helpful. Kept it down here.
So, Kurt.
Well, it's also St. Louis. St. Louis is also unique in the fact that the downtown is actually the bullseye of the metro area.
Right.
Just because when you factor in the Metro East, Atlanta's like that, but like think of a Chicago, you've got a lake on the east side. Some other markets like a Denver, you've got mountains on the west side. So having that centralized location, you can draw from a pretty significant radius of fans that come in. I mean, we experienced it. We had fans coming in from Iowa, Indiana, Tennessee for our games. If you go to Bosh, pre-COVID, you walk around the parking lot, you see a lot of, I saw Wyoming license plates with Cardinal stickers all over the car. I mean, that's the power of sports. You're not just drawing upon the St. Louis area or your local market. That regional/national reach brings in revenue. It just supports those local businesses, and that's something you wouldn't have if you didn't have that team.
Yep, exactly. So before we continue on with what's going on present day, we are definitely intrigued. We want to know about Kurt Hunzeker, the athlete. So as a kid, what sport would you say was the first one that you fell in love with?
Baseball. Born in St. Louis, you're born with, a ball and probably the red Cardinals hat in your crib. We tried to do a similar deal with the Battlehawks to trying to get kids to become lifelong Battlehawks fans the day they were born by putting little footballs at children's and a few other hospitals in the area. But baseball was my first love. Loved playing it. Was really adequate at best playing the game. But there's just something about the teamwork, the camaraderie, and then what you don't realize until you can't go to a game is the smells, the color green of the grass. Like, I'll never eat a hot dog unless it's at a ball game. Like, I'll never make a hot dog for myself, but hot dogs at a ball game are like the greatest things ever. But yeah, baseball was the first love. And so getting to work at Rawlings for almost 5 years was, if you couldn't work for the Cardinals, you wanted to work at Rawlings if you grew up in St. Louis, and having that ability and that, so much fun working there. And then, going from there to work in the minor league baseball office and getting to visit 130, 60 minor league teams at the time. At the end of the day, it's such a family-oriented experience where you make memories. And so I've never really said I work in sports. I've always said I'm in the memory-making business. And that's absolutely an accurate statement. And so for me, baseball was that first love. Like I said, I kept score with my dad and my older brother when I was, a foot and a half tall. And just Ozzie Smith was my guy. And when I got to meet him later in life while working at Rawlings, and he's an awesome ambassador for not just St. Louis, but all things St. Louis baseball, and Rawlings is definitely included in that. Like, I think the first time he called me Kurt, I almost fainted. Just the the fanboy inside of me, that little kid in the early '80s who just idolized him. That was a surreal day for me. But yeah, baseball has been the most prominent. But I think in college, I really fell in love with the Blues. I went to Mizzou, and we made a lot of trips to Savas, I guess it was called back then,
right
when it first opened. And I just had a blast at those games. And so got to know, I know quite a few people who work in the Blues front office. They're just the most people you've ever met. So community minded, and they were unbelievable. And this is separate to being a fan. Given the fact they're coming off a Stanley Cup run, and they were hosting the NHL All-Star Game, Steve Chapman and his team basically let us come in and tour and learn the back of the house because we had the same concessionaire. And the other 7 XFL markets, they had football teams that they could go visit and spy that played in the same venue, and we couldn't do that. And so we spied the Blues, and when they didn't have to be, they were the most open-armed and just fantastic to work with. And that goes back to St. Louis being St. Louis.
Mm. So as a young baseball fan, in regards to playing yourself, what position did you play?
I was allergic to infield dirt.
Oh, wow.
So I ended up gravitating to, I if you know Steve Sachs, he had a difficult time throwing at the first base. I did as well. I also somehow took every bat hop found me. I think at some point in youth baseball, someone called me Bat Hop Hunzeker. So I gravitated towards the grass of the outfield and loved that. I mean, I was relatively fast, so I could cover a lot of ground. While I had no accuracy in the infield, I had really good accuracy from the outfield. And so I just loved playing out there. I could track balls well. Like it was just a lot of fun, and nothing's more gratifying for a really short youth baseball player or somebody out at third base and they see the person right field because he's so short. They're just a good feeling about surprising people and kind of being the scrappy guy in the team. Can't hit a curveball, but he'll bunt and get on base, and then 2 pitches later, I'm standing on third, second and third. So that was kind of my game. Scrappy would definitely be the adjective that best describes how I played, and I think it's also fairly representative of how I am in the business world. We tend to people who work in sports tend to hustle a little bit more, far more strategic. We outwork and outmaneuver others just because we've got that drive and we've got that ambition to always get better. And I think that's pretty representative of me, both as a kid playing baseball and then working in the industry today.
So it sounds like you were a pretty scrappy guy as a ball player and as you are over at the time as a president of the Battlehawks. Where do you think you got that drive from?
Trying to keep up with my older brother. I as a middle child, I loved people have this middle child syndrome. I think it's the greatest thing ever. You learn from the mistakes. You learn from the mistakes of the older, and then while the little one gets the eyeball, you can kind of sneak and get away with some things. Now, my older brother, he's 6 years older, and he is probably one of the better athletes I've ever met. I mean, he could pick up, a badminton racket and become world class in like an hour. So really just trying to keep up with him. And he always played stickball and wiffle ball out in the yard. And that was a daily routine. I mean, there was no devices. We didn't have the technology. Got home from school, finished the homework, and then we're outside until the mosquitoes started attacking us. But yeah, it was, and we're very sports oriented. Whole family is to a degree. I think my older brother and I will. I keep all the scorecards. I'm like, there's only 3 of these. If I kept all the losing scorecards, there'd be 500. So anytime you get that big, memorable win, you want to savor it. But yeah, they instilled the love of sport. They really instilled the love of teamwork. I think more than anything, that's what really can pick you up. If someone else messes up, maybe you can pick them up. And then when you put all the pieces together, if you have that love for each other and a passion for the team, then you can do some pretty spectacular things, even though you may not have the talent level of your opponent. We always had, no matter what team I was on, I had great coaches that instilled a work ethic that said we may not be the best, but we'll never be outworked. And that has attached itself to me in everything I do in life. I'd be hard pressed to find someone who could outwork me. And I'm not being arrogant. That's just my personality. I mean, I just really give everything 110. And that's just, it's worked. It was really working for the Battlehawks. The fact that I'm unemployed still seems really strange because it was working well. Mm-hmm. But the love of competing really translates quite well and in a positive way off the field. And regardless if I work in sports or not, it's that scrappy mentality, that strategic hustle that I like to bring every day.
And
so growing up, since you were like to compete, were you one of the kids that played sports year round, from soccer or football, baseball, even basketball or anything like that?
Not really. I played basketball and I played baseball predominantly, and I played basketball. Soccer was, I was probably one of like 7 kids total who grew up in St. Louis that didn't play soccer. And I think that's my mom more than anything. She definitely had that belief of too many headers, and that's not a good thing for you later in life. So none of us really played soccer, but we did explore, and we tried playing everything. And back then, PE was where you got to be, where you were introduced to a lot of sports. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And tennis was one that, even though you play as an individual one-on-one, I mean, you play for a team. And so, I did that in elementary school. I ran, but, you're running with a group. So, and running's really one of the most brutal things ever, but it's a necessary evil at this stage in my life. But really, it was baseball first, basketball second. I loved everything about football. Never once played the sport except for maybe 2-hand touch and a couple tackle games with buddies, but definitely not football. And after moving from St. Louis to Florida, you could play baseball year round, and that became a fun thing to do.
Nice. All right. So, do you have any old photos of you playing basketball back in your heyday? My one and only great basketball story, and I use this for icebreakers anytime I go to any kind of conference. I technically played basketball with the Harlem Globetrotters when I was a kid. Long story short, my older brother, and this is for all the St. Louis followers, my older brother was on DB's Delight back in the day. You remember that game show with the crazy puppet as the host, and he was like dressed like a magician? Right.
I must have been 4 or 5 years old, and the Globetrotters were in town. And DB's Delight was filmed, I believe, at KMOX TV, where KMOV is now. And they were for some reason they were in the at the station, and they pulled. They're doing a small little clinic for the cameras, and I was just sitting there, and they pulled me in. I don't know who it was, but it is such a memory in my head, and my older brother, my mom, and everybody from my family who was there can validate the story. But it's a very non-traditional icebreaker. Yeah, I played with the Harlem Globetrotters. Now, play is a slightly loose term, but I'll take that to the grave of I played with the large ones.
We'll take it. We'll take it.
And so I'm sorry.
Real quick, couple comments from the St. Louis Trotters. He say, "What's up, guys?" St. Louis Trotters is a St. Louis, of course, basketball team, kind of similar like to it's pretty much an adult league team with some incredible players on that team. So shouts out to them. And then someone that you may know, Kurt, says he got it from his uncle, Bob.
Yeah, Uncle Rob. Uncle Rob is the quote unquote everyone's favorite uncle.
Got you.
So there's a gazillion stories, and I can put them on the spot right now. But one thing and my father and I were just talking about this. It seems like it's becoming more unique, and we don't know why. The Hunzeker family is this all the way around. It's not just your siblings. My father had there was 5 on his line on the family tree. My grandfather was the second of 10. He grew up on a farm in Nebraska. When the cousins got together, my father and his brothers and sisters got together with their cousins. I believe there was something in the 40s. The cousins, and they all knew each other like they were brothers and sisters. They all got together annually. Then in my line of the family tree, we got together every holiday. I mean, most of us lived in St. Louis growing up. A few of my cousins lived in Cincinnati, but we didn't really go vacation to like California or the Florida coast. We always went to the family, just because it seemed weird if you didn't. And that's not typical. That's not normal anymore. And so when is
that my connection?
Tend to be.
No, I believe it could be his. I'm not sure.
Consumed a lot of fun to be had and all of that.
Hey, Kurt, we do apologize. It looks like as you were telling your story that your feed was kind of going in and out. Do you mind just repeating, if you don't mind, the last? He's coming back on now. You don't mind just repeating what you were just stating, because your feed was kind of going in and out?
Sorry. Where'd you lose me?
Okay, yeah, you was just pretty much talking about your family and how strong y'all are.
And it was weird that y'all didn't, go to Florida, California. You went back to the family for vacation. Everybody came together.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't know what happened, but yeah, it's the family became that was the destination. We never had a bad time hanging out with the family, and we are a generation older, and that continues. When the Hunzeker party it's a fun atmosphere, and Bob's one of the ringleaders for it, for sure.
Nice. So, what high school did you go to?
Hey, I was about to ask that.
This is where I lose the same game. The answer is Bloomingdale, in Tampa, Florida.
Wow.
So I moved my family moved in 6th grade So I went to high school down in Tampa, but I rally and recover from my awful answer because I went to the University of Missouri,
Okay.
Columbia.
All
There
right.
it is. Okay, we all good
You
now.
earned some of your points back.
Yeah.
You earned some of your points back.
Yeah.
What sports did you play in high school while you were in Tampa? Just baseball, or you did anything else? Wrestling? Anything?
It's funny. In high school, what I really loved doing was being a part of different student organizations. So I think what I did most prominently was like student government. It's kind of like my father is probably the greatest leader who I model myself after. And he was quick to point out, hey, there's leadership opportunities even when you're growing up. And really, I latched onto that. So, while the scrappy ball player is a good side of my story, I think the more relevant as I was growing up was being able to learn those leadership skills and apply it at an early age. And I continued that on at Mizzou and into my career. So, I like to be the all everything. Like I pride myself on being the amoeba who could slide in and out of any table at lunch. And we did that. It's a great way to get to know people. I think I'm like a class short of a psychology minor at Mizzou because I'm just fascinated by the way that of how things work and how people work and what makes them tick. And that's why I love listening, even though I tend to talk a lot. But it's just fun getting to know people. And we did that in high school. And I'm hoping my kids do that now it's great to have close friends, but it's even more fun to have a lot of friends and being open-minded to a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of different ways that people do things. The way that we do it is just the way that we do it. And it's the experiences that really have shaped me rather than things or sports growing up as a kid.
And speaking of course, sports, the Cardinals did win Game 1 against the Padres, so congrats to them. And right now, the Lakers and Heat are playing. Tip-off just happened, so some more good stuff going on, along with our sports talk show, as we have special guest Kurt Hunzeker on the show via Zoom. I am your boy Smooth, along with...
Buddy.
There it is. So, Kurt, going after college, or I should ask the question, was it high school or was it college? And you start to develop that want to maybe run an organization?
High school. So ironically, it was high school where I knew I wanted to work in sports. I pivoted in college. So University of Missouri is an out-of-state student, you're there for journalism school. And it's almost the same exact game as you go to in this. If someone at Mizzou tells you where you're from, journalism school, I'm like, yes. The dream was to be on ESPN, Sports Center. High school for me was Keith Olbermann and Dan Patrick's and Stuart Scott and Rich Eisen. That looked so incredibly fun. You get to watch sports all day, you get to talk about it, and you get to hang out. And it just seemed like there were two friends just having the greatest time together. And oh, by the way, you can get paid to do it and get to go to all these big events. That was what I originally was going to do, and why I went to University of Missouri was broadcast journalism. I think I lasted 5 minutes journalism class when the Dr. Ranley, who was our J200 teacher at the time, said, if you're creative and you don't feel like living in a market smaller than this classroom, I recommend a different avenue in journalism. And I felt like he was talking to the class, I'm like, he's talking directly to me. Very creative background, really wanted to do more than just kind of read the news. So luckily for me at Mizzou, advertising was part of the journalism school. And so that's the route I took. Sports business programs really didn't exist in the late 90s like they do now. So I interned at the Mizzou athletic department in their development, in the fundraising arm. My internship was amazing. because I got to be the tennis net literally for two individuals who are prominent executives in collegiate athletics today. Ross Bjork, who's now at Texas A&M, he's their athletic director. Laird Beach is at was at the state, and the reason I was the tennis net is I physically took wadded balls, pencils, pens. They would try to throw at each other, and they always hit the intern in the middle. But the amount of just real experience I received in this 6-month internship working for those two extraordinary gentlemen and executives really helped propel me in my career. And if nothing else, they treated me as an equal when they certainly didn't have to. I mean, there's other interns in the athletics department that, fetched coffee, made copies, but they had me sit in on strategy sessions, and they're like, hey, you have a unique perspective, and we don't have that in here. And so we need recent graduates to be active members of the athletic department when they graduate. How would that, like, what would entice you? And I'm like, wow, my vote counts. And like, every vote counts. Everybody matters. That stuck with me, and it continues to this day. And even at the Battlehawks, there's 22 of us. Everybody had an equal voice. While you might have been hired for one vertical in our business, you touched everything. Some of our greatest marketers were technically on the ticket sales and experience team. Some of the best ideas came from our head of IT. So it's knowing that you don't have all the answers, and having the staff and having that team, it goes back to the teamwork, having that team to help make things better and make the organization whole and complete really is what makes, working in the different roles that I've had throughout my career, something that I'll always cherish.
So you brought up the Battlehawks. That moment when you realized that St. Louis was getting an XFL team, what was your initial thoughts?
I thought it was pretty telling that St. Louis was the only market that didn't also have an NFL team. Mm-hmm. And this was before I interviewed. And I said, you know what? And the answer to that, because it just seemed like a riddle. I sensed the answer to it to some degree, but and I knew right out of the gate, I'm like, that's going to be the best team in that league. When I got the call from executive recruiter to see if I wanted to help build a sports team in my hometown, it was months after the XFL market announcement. I actually started wondering who passed away at the Cardinals or Blues. Like I didn't immediately connect the dots that it was the XFL, and they're like, no, it's the XFL, it's the new professional football league. I'm like, oh wait, oh yes, and getting to learn more from Oliver Luck and Jeffrey Pollock, who are the two leaders of the organization. Oliver, commissioner, and ran the football side. Jeffrey was on the business side, and that's where I sat. I didn't do anything on the field. Coach Hayes handled all of that. Nor would you want, because I'm like one of the worst fantasy football players ever.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you about your record later.
I think 2 winning seasons out of 20, I stopped. I can enjoy it more. But getting to build this team and getting to hopefully bury the past, maybe the best way to put it.
Right.
Because it had been, it hadn't been that long since the Rams left. And when we first got out in the community, a little over a year ago today, the Battlehawks name was born on August 21st of 19. We had to really nullify that negative sentiment towards pro football. I knew the potential of the marketplace, but I also knew the hurt. And we were not oblivious to the hurt. We just it didn't serve a great purpose to always talk about it or bring it up. Right. And when a lot of people said, I can't fall in love again, it's been twice kind of the football Cardinals leaving for Phoenix. I'm like, I get it. I totally get it. That still doesn't mean you can't help out, because we really needed everybody to co-author the story of building this Battlehawks team in St. Louis, because the difference maker was it was the first homegrown team, and that was the carrot for me at the end of the stick. That's what I strove for. Is it'll be a completely new experience. Yes, it's not at the NFL level, most elite level, but there's something about that scrappy story of these players who just need that one break to make it. And look at what Jordan's doing on the practice squad of the Chiefs. He's replicating Lamar for Monday's game, and I think the Chiefs handled Lamar quite nicely.
He did succeed
and,
doing that.
Yeah, and and that's just a small part of it. But for me, I was terrified, candidly, at my first day on July 1st of last year, because I had 7 months and a week until our first game, and that was frightening. Just because all the big ideas, all these things we wanted to do, we actually put it in the 2021 bucket and said, you know what, when we have a full off season, we'll get to this. So I would estimate that what people saw in those first two games when we had planned for the back three was probably 20% of what we wanted to do, just because we didn't have a whole lot of time. Not only did I start kind of late, like the final member of our team started the week of our first game. So we had to build the staff while simultaneously going out to the community. And it was strategic hustle through and through. And that first game, that first home game, February 23rd, I had perpetual goosebumps coming off of 70 right at Broadway at 7 a.m. and seeing thousands of people already tailgating. Mm-hmm. I never dreamt that is something that I wish I had a camera, and I wish you had my unfiltered laughs, cries, holy crap, like, all of that. They're here for us.
Right.
They're here for this team. And then walking around seeing the smiles, like I mentioned before, I think that was, while we only got 2 home games, and we only got 2 home games in 6 days, blink and it was over. Nothing ever will. And I mentioned it before, Game 6 ever for me, just because we got to help put those smiles on people's faces. We allowed them to forget about what happens in the past and let them shine as the true stars of the team. I mean, the St. Louis community, the Battlehawks were their team. They co-wrote the story. They were the feature players. The players were going to come and go, but the St. Louis football loving community was always going to be there. And while it was way too short at the time, they did everything right. And I'd like to think that the new ownership group is going to want to tap back into that passion whenever they restart XFL, I guess, 3.0.
Now, speaking of which, sorry, go ahead, Bunny. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, you go ahead first.
I didn't want to jump the gun since he was just mentioning about the new ownership. Where do you see the ownership of The Rock and his partners? Where do you see them taking this? You think it'll bring it back to how it was when it just got started in 2020, or then it'll be some changes? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think there's going to be changes just because that's good. And I think it's more of, I think change may not be the right word. I think amplification.
Okay.
What went right, of what was going well. And then you tap into that jar of great ideas that we set aside for 2021. There's a lot of good files and good write-ups and strategies and ideas that are assets, in my opinion, that the new ownership team can activate whenever they want. When I first heard of Danny Garcia and Dwayne Johnson and Redbird Capital purchasing the XFL, the first thing I thought of was, this is officially a year-round brand. Mm-hmm. The parallels between his show Ballers and HBO,
right,
and what they could do with the XFL is uncanny. They are entertainers, and they are incredibly savvy, smart business people who don't pick a loser. And the fact that they came in and bid on the XFL, and you know that they've got a gazillion and one ideas themselves, and they could take it into a entirely new direction, and it might be better. I mean, we were only 5 weeks into our inaugural season. We didn't even have enough time to really do a full recap of what was going right. I mean, the things that were going incredibly wrong, like the long lines at concessions and not having enough merchandise, we were addressing that on the go. But, that ability to sit back and be like, okay, this really worked, this didn't work, what if we did this? They have all those ideas, and they've done it, and they have their own production company, and they've invested in a lot of successful businesses across a lot of different business verticals. There is a lot to admire about what they've done and what I hope they're likely to do with this new asset.
So with that being said, because obviously, as you said before, The Rock, he's a businessman. He's a great visionary. With that being said, for everything that you did for the Battlehawks, which we all commend you, because you definitely brought that love that we've been yearning for the longest time. Without any shadow of a doubt, there should be no reason why he shouldn't be coming at you like, hey, we want you to come back to St. Louis and be the Battlehawks president. But that would be interesting to you to come back to keep going again and continue what you was already starting to do for St. Louis?
Of course. And I've always said that, if it weren't for COVID, we would all still be there.
Right.
And we would have had 55,000 for game 3. We would have opened up the top for games 4 and 5. Hopefully we make the playoffs. Hopefully we have a parade. A boy can dream. And then we would have been into planning. And we were actually in planning for 2021 when the question of when your next game is going to be became very hard to answer. And 5.5 months have passed since April 10th, when everything disappeared instantly. From a business standpoint, very pragmatically, it's hard to keep the lights on when you're a startup and you have no idea when your product can be consumed again. And even now, when college football was splitting who was playing in the fall and who was playing in the spring, well, the spring was kind of the window the XFL was creating for itself, or kind of staking as its own, between the end of the Super Bowl and the draft. And when we didn't know, well, the NFL could bleed into that. Oh, look, some of these college conferences could bleed into that. Who knows if there's a vaccine? Who knows if venues are going to be open again? That's a hard, and then you have 8 teams and a full headquarters in Connecticut at the time. Like, that's, I can't imagine those conversations. It obviously sucks that it ended the way it did, just because you go from the euphoria of 2 home games, and the last one being on February 29th. The season is suspended on the 12th of March, so we were 9 days away from the LA game and taking the roof off of the dome. It would have been so loud that day. And then a month later, it's all over.
Right.
I mean, that is a swift 6 months or 6 weeks of the highest of highs, and then like, did that just happen? Like, did I dream all this? And that was the hardest part. The good news is YouTube has captured in the entire games, and I've watched that first home game repeatedly. The crowd is electric and it's loud. I still love seeing people posting on Twitter and Instagram, they're rocking the Battlehawks gear. It was a lot of fun, especially in January and February going to Blues games and people wearing Battlehawks hats with their Blues jerseys. I'm like, holy crap, we've made it there. And I would love to see him come back. And again, I mentioned it previously. St. Louis did nothing to not position itself to be one of the first calls back whenever that time is. And I have no idea when that time is. Only the ownership team will know. And there's a lot of dominoes they need to happen first before they start engaging, bringing the individual markets back into play. But the St. Louis community did nothing to disqualify itself. The fans came out in droves. The corporate partners that we had were unbelievable in promoting the team and promoting the community mindset that we instilled. The civic leaders, our partners at the Dome, like everything was just running so smoothly to where, and you're always kind of worried about the trap door. Like, man, this is really working. Not realizing the trap door was a global pandemic. Outside of that, we'd be rock and roll and preparing for, kickoff in February of 2021 right now.
Now, earlier you brought up going to Blues games and seeing fans rocking the jerseys, and the thing you have not brought up yet was the caw.
The famous Battlehawks.
Kurt,
That was catchy in itself. That got people talking about it just because of the call.
So Kurt, as soon as you start hearing about the cacao, the hypeness, and I believe it started from 101 ESPN, the Fast Lane, if I'm correct. They were the ones who started out the whole cacao. But when you started hearing that and it was picking up steam, what was your initial reaction?
I think there's more than 5,000 people claiming they came up with that. I don't disagree with you. I think 101 ESPN was a megaphone for the grassroots support, the organic love people had for the Battlehawks. When we first started hearing it, it was hilarious. I mean, there's just no way around it. A Battlehawk doesn't exist. I mean, one of the great things about the team name, and having just come from minor league baseball, Battlehawks is such a unique name. When you close your eyes, you can't really envision what you're looking at. Is it a bird? Is it a plane? And I always say it's both. If you want it to be a bird, it's a bird. If you want it to be a plane, it's a plane. We never said cacaw once as a team because I told anybody who would listen, most notably our content and social, the second we it becomes incredibly uncool. It's like mom technically all game and people are talking about the Battlehawks. Yeah, I love it. I think it's the greatest thing ever. And it really did perfectly align with the personality that we were building for the Battlehawks brand. We wanted to be fun. We wanted to be inventive. And that just perfectly encapsulated everything that we were trying to be. And we didn't come up with it. I don't know. I think we guesstimated there's probably a good $250,000 of $500,000 in cacaw merchandise that we didn't get a single penny on because it wasn't a license of ours.
Right.
But at the same time, when you have people wearing cacaw and it kind of looks like the logo on it, that's still a walking billboard for us. And as a startup, any kind of publicity, any kind of positive publicity and anything that builds awareness, that's one less penny that I have to spend to try to generate that myself. And so I absolutely credit whoever did come up with cacaw of why we sold out our 2 games, why there was such a love affair, just because it was so different than what the previous football team did. And while we never said it ourselves, we certainly did as much as we could to fan it and to to make that a thing in St. Louis. And part of it was by me never saying it. That became a thing within a thing. And it was fun, and it was a game, and people always try to say it. So when on the 10th, when everything ended, I finally said it for the first time, and people were like, "Oh, it took this for you to say it?" But no, it's so much better than clear to engage, which was our official hashtag, just because it's 5 letters and it can mean literally anything. And the open-ended nature of that, and the fact that a hawk doesn't make that noise, which makes it even funnier, is something that, it's people probably remember the call before they remember the team name Battlehawks.
Exactly, but it worked. Good marketing. And, St. Louis as a town, we embrace our sports team. So as a startup and the cacao, that just helped the momentum and people getting ready and excited for the Battlehawks. So I believe when Dwayne Johnson and his partners look at it and they knew how well the attendance was and how St. Louis was, that it'll come back here. But
it has to.
They just did too many positives to be for the first, well, I guess a XFL 2.0, that we had the good numbers compared to the other teams, like you said, the location, and everybody was on board. So your team, Kurt, shout out to you all, because you all did an amazing job to be a startup.
and
I thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I thank you. And you actually brought up a great word, Bunny, and that's momentum.
Right.
And I mentioned, the Cardinals and LCS, the Blues, what they did. There was a unknown, or there's a hidden angst of, we have to keep this going. I think why the Battlehawks were so successful is because of the Blues run really, really eradicated any kind of false narrative of what kind of sports town St. Louis is. It goes back to the 40,000 people sitting on Market watching a hockey game on TV, and the 30,000 people sitting in a monsoon at Busch Stadium watching a hockey game on the Jumbotron. Like, where does that happen? And the national audience got to see that. And it goes back to St. Louis being St. Louis, and I love that phrase. I mean, you embrace St. Louis, and the embrace you get back is so much better than you could imagine. That is what we felt. We got out in the community every day from August 21st of 2019 until March 12th, when the season suspended. We weren't allowed to engage people anymore. Every day except for Christmas and New Year's, we were out doing something in the community. And we wanted to earn our stripes. We wanted to earn our homegrown status. It's a great marketing tagline. It's completely different when you're actually walking the walk. And when people started seeing that and started seeing us repeatedly, the happy hours that we had, going to high school football games, going to big events, whether it was in O'Fallon, Missouri, East St. Louis, Washington, Missouri, we blanketed everywhere. I think that is when, we're keeping this momentum going, and they seemingly like the story. Working with and engaging and collaborating with all of St. Louis, that was, and with the 22 of us in the front office, and then Coach and his staff, everybody was rowing in the same direction, and that's not normal, and we certainly didn't take it for granted.
And someone else that you may know says, "We love the cacao." That's Katrina Hunzeker.
Yeah, that is my wife. She and the kids said it regularly, and I kept it up at home. I never said it at home, just because, again, I just had that fear of the second I say it, it's going to start sucking, and then I killed it. And now it's still Oliver from Brady, cousin Oliver Jinx from Brady Bunch. So,
well, I will say, Kurt, the love that St. Louis sports teams do. So prior to the Blues doing their famous run to get to the Stanley Cup, the year before last when the team that they blew together on socks and things and scarves too. And I thought that was unique. I'm like, that they don't compete against each other, two different sports, but the fact that they know in this market, St. Louis loves their team, so they'll wear the two different team clothes at the same time. And then you add on, of course, when the Battlehawks momentum. I remember having on the news they had Molina at the Blues game, and sometimes you had the Blues players at the Cardinals games. Like the ownerships work with each other. They're like, hey, support. I mean, St. Louis loves sports teams, and if we're doing it like this for major teams, and Battlehawks came, really got it going. Wait till the soccer team comes, and they start getting ready to get on the field. I mean, we just love our. I think two for a couple of years, and sour feelings from people. Now I'm one of those people. I still don't acknowledge the Rams in LA, but they're out the pictures. Move on. The Battlehawks are here. Let's embrace this, and we're all for it. And then soccer coming. I mean, we just show the love. We love sports, and we want to see our city succeed with our sports teams and players here. So I believe, again, XFL, Dwayne Johnson, and others, please acknowledge that St. Louis did a good job. And when that call comes that you want us to, or you want Kurt and his team to continue to keep marketing and getting more people on board with the Battlehawks. So I just put it out there because you guys, like I said, did an awesome job. And we're St. Louis folks. We just love our team. We just want to see them do well and be successful.
Well, Bunny, to highlight your point, on the day I was announced as the team president, 2 incoming emails or texts from the executives at the Cardinals and the Blues, openly stating whatever you need, you got.
Wow.
That's insane, candidly. I always had the picture in my head of I wonder how many years it's going to take for us to get into the One Nation merchandise that you're talking about with the Cardinals and the Blues logo. Mm-hmm. And we share the Battlehawks at the time shared a connection with the MLS team because they announced that they got the team the day before we unveiled our identity. And so Carolyn Kendall Betts and I, that's how we first met and became friends. I'm like, well, I guess we're joined at the hip now. And I invited them and Dennis Moore to our first home game. Like, it could be a complete disaster, but hey, it might help you guys as you plan. And the level of sharing, I mentioned what the Blues did for us to help with our concessions, like education, but just the level of camaraderie and sharing and just being so helpful between Dan Farrell and the DeWitts with the Cardinals and Mr. Stl and Mr. Zimmerman, Steve Chapman, everybody at the Blues, and then Carolyn and the entire Taylor and Jim Cavanaugh with the soccer team. Like, that's not normal. St. Louis should really pride themselves that they have such amazing leaders running their sports teams, and they work well together, and we want the best for each other. And even though there's some overlap, I guess, when fans would attend games, I was looking forward to Game 4, which we were going to kick off at 11 a.m. because when our game ended, the Cardinals game, the first Sunday home game of the season, was going to start. And we would have had our version of Super Sports Day in St. Louis. I mean, I personally have gone to a handful of Cardinal games during the day and Blues games that night. Those are like the most fun sports days. Danny, Dwayne, and the rest of the team. There is so much more to do here. We were really just scratching the surface of what could be done. And the fact that the buy-in was so emphatic by St. Louis and all of St. Louis fans, corporate community, civic leaders, that bodes well for whatever comes next, whenever it happens.
And just to add on, St. Louis should be the model for what other teams should follow. Like, we had this discussion months back during the XFL season, how they have, the teams in New York and the teams in LA because they want to get that bigger market. But they really need to strategize and focus on those markets that are hungry for sports again, like St. Louis was, like San Diego, just
San Diego.
losing the Chargers, going to other
Oakland.
towns that may not have usually a pro team. Like for instance, like a Tennessee, well, not Tennessee. What's that state right there? I'm trying to think of that's like hungry for sports, but don't have like an NFL team. Tip of my tongue right now.
Oklahoma City or something?
Something like that. You know what I'm saying?
But...
Cities that usually don't get that kind of shine, but you know that tradition is strong. Like for instance, Indiana. Well, no, I'm sorry, you got the coast.
You got the coast in Indianapolis.
My bad. But no, just markets like that.
That's why I mentioned Oklahoma City, because right now they have an NBA team, but it's a small market. But they got a big college team. University of Oklahoma is known for football, so they could get a market in Oklahoma City, you know.
Right. But just seeing everything that you've done, Kurt, and of course you and the whole team for the Battlehawks, whole organization, what they have done, brought the hype. It actually made St. Louis, especially on ESPN, ABC, Fox, etc., a media darling, because they knew what we went through and how that guy was saying how we wasn't really not a sports town, but wasn't supporting professional football, and we shut him up as soon as the hype was building about the Battlehawks and of course the home opener, and we did a commercial shoot for the Sports Talk show. The second home game, I believe that was against Seattle Dragons. And it was my first time being able to see the crowd in person. And it was just an incredible sight. The tailgating, like you said before, the energy, it reminded me of those good old days of checking out the Rams when they were good. And like I said, the energy was perfect. So hopefully The Rock, because he's a smart man, but hopefully he sees exactly what happened to St. Louis and he gets at you, but he also uses the St. Louis Battlehawks organization as a model overall of what we need to do to make this product better for years to come. With that being said, with the logo, who thought of that design? Because that was people didn't really know about it until it was told that if you flip it upside down, you'll see STL. So who thought about that concept with the logo?
The name and logo was baked even before I started interviewing.
Okay.
A long process, and so I think it was finalized in January of 19, and then I started in July of 19. Like I mentioned before, there isn't a high school team called Battlehawks. There might be now, but there wasn't back then. So we had a really unique name that again, coming from minor league baseball, I loved that you couldn't pigeonhole us into a look. It's definitely rooted based on St. Louis's aviation history. Like I said, if you want to be a menacing bird on the attack, you're absolutely right. The logo, when I first saw the logo, and it was after I started, because all of us saw the logos at the same time. When I saw it for the first time as it applied to the helmet. So I saw the helmet first. And I came out of my chair just because that is a unique design. And football helmets, generally you just have the same thing on each side, maybe reversed to face the same direction. But when I saw it, and then you turn it on when you're head on, so if you're a defensive lineman or you're the camera that's behind the quarterback, you'll see our logo staring right back at you. I was like, whoever came up with this, I owe beers, because we're going to sell all sorts of merchandise with this. And again, because we were only in our first season, and Mr. McMahon didn't want the logos leaked at all, and they weren't. When we unveiled, nobody had any idea on the names and logos, mainly because I think all of us were scared to death of being fired if we leaked it. We didn't have a full slate of merchandise available like you typically see when there's an unveiling, a new logo or a new team. St. Louis City just went through this. They unveiled when they had a full complement of merchandise, or at least a full complement of the initial merchandise available to us. We had nothing for a few months, and that's why I think all the COG merchandise took off, because there was an appetite and we couldn't fill it. But that logo and that design gave us so much creative potential, and I love the fact that a lot of our commercial partners love that we wanted to integrate them into our logos. Like the Happy Hour Plus logo with Bud Select. We transformed our logo into a neon for that. With Renewal by Anderson, we did the glass case of emotion. I don't know if you guys saw that in the concourse of our games. It was literally a glass box that people could go in and scream and get all excited to get ready for the game. And people took pictures, and it was all over social media. It was our logo, but kind of like more of a glass texture to it. Mm-hmm. That was that creativity that we were basically allowed to capitalize on and leverage was to me a big driver to fulfilling that fun quotient that we really wanted. Great name. Yeah, at first people had some heartburn about the proximity to both Blackhawks and Jayhawks. Myself probably being first in that line. Once everybody got over that, you realize how unique and fun the name can be. And then when the logo comes out, and then you see the hidden 3-1 or STL, and then the hidden pie, because I'm staring at it now. Battlehawks, the only two letters that connect through the T's, and that made pie, and that was our hidden 314. Like,
I didn't know that.
They're the little things that are you're part of the secret club if you can find it. I never thought that anybody would find the upside down STL, but it was like within an hour of unveiling, someone on Twitter's like, "Hey, you flip it upside down." I'm like, "Why the hell would you flip it upside down? Like, who does that?" I was kind of hoping we actually had a subsequent like social media post to generate more awareness and publicity for the team, but whoever came up, I think it was KMOX Radio actually. They kind of stuffed out our Easter egg a little too quickly.
Okay. Well, you said the licensing took a long time to get done, and they started the logo before you even got hired. What else during your process of getting the Battlehawks on board and getting the season started? What else took a long process that you had to work with or work, to get done?
Excellent question. I think for us it was when could we roll out the field? Mm-hmm. People completely misrepresent how busy the dome is. Our lease was pretty exact. During a 10-week regular season, there are 5 weeks that are open. And we plugged in those 5 weeks because the dome's very busy with various conferences that you have to book out years and years in advance. Mm-hmm. And similar to attracting some of those, NCAA events at Enterprise that you talked about previously, they're competing to bring in car shows and home shows and, convention of lawyers and doctors or medical personnel or what have you. Mm-hmm. So we didn't unroll the field until the week before the first game. So we couldn't paint the field until pretty close to that first game versus New York.
Wow.
And when you haven't, it's one of those things you're just like, I hope. And the great news is Katie Ratcliffe and Matthew Dewey and the entire Dome team were awesome. And any kind of hiccups that the public never saw, we took care of it pretty quickly and collaboratively. So it was very much a partnership that I think helped us achieve a lot of the goals that we set out. I mean, they were very open-minded to opening up the top and we built a plan together to make sure that we had the right personnel, we had the right security in place, we had everything. We didn't rush into it, and we had to learn from the first 2 games to see what kind of crowds were coming in. I candidly thought we were going to have a little bit more family-oriented crowd. We certainly did, except the family were all older and like to consume beer.
I'm about to say, it's 21 and older family.
Yeah, our concessions per cap was pretty amazing for our 2 home games. So they were enjoying themselves, and that's good for us. That was good for the Dome. It's good because a lot of that money gets repurposed. So, it was, and we didn't have that time. I think one thing that we couldn't launch and was going to launch the next game was our partnership with Square. That never saw the light of day, and working with them, we were going to bring in Square sellers. We're going to create what we're going to call a Square inside the concourse. They're going to create Battlehawks branded things based on what they do best. So it could have been soaps, it could have been metal signs. It was our way of bringing in the St. Louis community in a really unique and still fun way, and still relevant. And, obviously them moving downtown to the old Post-Dispatch building, what Jack Dorsey and Jim McKelvey are doing for the St. Louis community. We were effectively going to be neighbors for, multiple years. And that was going to be a really fun partnership to activate, not only for, the 5 home games, but throughout the year. And that's a bummer that we never got to really announce that. Because I have nothing but phenomenal things to say about Square and that organization. Again, similar to what I said about the Cardinals and Blues, the St. Louis corporate community, Dave Peacock at Schnucks, the team at Square, Ameren, AB, they were so receptive to the story that we were telling, and they wanted to be a part of it. They wanted to help amplify it, and I credit them for a lot of successes that the team experienced because they bought in to building that home. They wanted to be a part of that story, and they made it so much better.
That Square and the Square, that sounds like a cool idea. But I'm thinking positive. All that you guys have planned that you didn't get to enact or carry out, eventually will when they give you that call.
Right.
I'm just 2020 is a trash year. Everybody knows that.
Right.
So when 2021 rolls around, it'll definitely be better.
Yep. Now,
and no, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. I just wanted to bring up on the field itself, people didn't really know what to expect with the product on the field. And this team was actually pretty darn good, led by head coach Jonathan, excuse me, took my tongue real quick, Jonathan Hayes. So what led you to the organization and to getting him, and talk about the job that he did as a head coach and bringing pretty much a winning football team to St. Louis?
Well, he was hired before I was, and so when I first met him, I had this idea of this team to be community rooted. And so when I first met him, I was like, "Hey, I got this big idea." He's like, "Let me go first." I'm like, "Okay, you're twice the size as I am. I will let you go first." And he's like, "I really want us on our off days to get out into the community and give back, because a lot of these will be young men, fresh out of college. I want to instill that kind of civic servitude." And I'm just like, "You and I are going to be best friends." We didn't always see eye to eye, mainly because I always had to stand in a chair to be eye to eye with him. He is a rather tall individual, but he built the football operation side. He built his staff. They wanted to give back, and oh, by the way, they could evaluate talent. And when there was a lot of buzz about some of the coaches that were going to be in the XFL, he probably didn't get a whole lot of initial publicity, but what he did in building the team and really in that first drive of that first game at home, 4 running plays were in the end zone and the place is going hysterical. Agreeing to go kick a 58-yard field goal, like those players loved him, and those Bud Light Seltzer celebrations.
Oh, epic!
When he brought out the mask, like you thought we won the NBA Finals, and it was we beat the Seattle Dragons at home to go 3-1. It was fun seeing how they built the team, their plans to build the team, to see the draft, a 70-round draft over 2 days commence. That was unbelievable. And they got almost everybody they wanted. And their ability to evaluate talent and then to coach that talent and to see where, guys like Jordan, Kenny Robinson, hopefully will continue to do on Sundays, and, how much a lot of those, Taylor Russolino should be playing in the NFL. Marquette King should be playing in the NFL. I mean, our offensive line just pancaked people. Matt Jones was unbelievable. Damian Washington was streaking down the sidelines. Like, we were just really getting the rhythm. And I think all the XFL teams can say that. We only played 5 weeks. I think our best football was going to be ahead of us. And the high-scoring games that I think everybody believed there it would be were going to happen. I mean, that last game ever of this version of it, LA and Tampa Bay, was a really high-scoring game. And Coach had all those plays in the playbook. That New York game, you saw the best of Jordan Ta'amu. He could decide for the defense. He could check down to a run. He could play action and find the open receiver. I mean, there's, outside of the failed conversions almost every single time, which I think is just bad luck. That was such an amazing offense to watch in practice, and then see it play out live on our Saturdays and Sundays in the spring was truly a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it was definitely a joy for us to see how great that team was playing, how much fun they had. As you brought up earlier, Jordan Ta'amu did an incredible job. I think he's like one of the youngest quarterbacks, of the XFL. Something that people were trying to get a hang of were the different rules that the XFL had. So when the XFL came to the organization and was letting everybody know about these rules, like the overtime rule, the big one, of course, was the kickoffs, etc. What were your thoughts about that, and how hard was it for your players to adjust to those XFL rules?
Right after I was first hired, I got to sit in on the focus groups with prospective fans because we wanted their input. And again, it was a fan-centric league through and through. And Sam Schwartzstein on the football operations side, he was kind of the guru of a lot of these rule enhancements, and they were rooted in player safety. I am bored senseless on Saturdays and Sundays this fall on every off because there are hardly any kick returns.
Right.
And as we proved week 3 with our kick return for a touchdown, I mean, that is a momentum shifting play that doesn't exist anymore. And so you got to, that rule by itself really addressed 2 things. One, obviously player safety. When you're only 5 yards apart, you're not going to have those high impact collisions that cause the most damage. But 2, you're also ensuring a return. And that's a really exciting play. And, for players who've been always doing it a certain way throughout their entire lives, there's going to be an adjustment period. But you saw in that third game, and you're starting to see it throughout the league, different type of blocking schemes, a lot of kind of motion, so to speak, like Joe Powell did for our touchdown. That was the part that we were still getting used to. The coaches were still getting used to. How do you, where's the loopholes? Where can you take advantage of some of these opportunities. The double forward pass didn't really get used a whole lot. Not many teams went for 3 points. When the math suggests that 2 was probably the best play, but on certain situations, 3 was the best play. And given the fact that so many teams are spread offense, that extra 10 yards might be a more appropriate get than trying to jam it in from 5 or even 2 for 1 point. We never got an overtime. That would have been something else.
Right.
And a lot of this, the overtime rule was really, you wanted to keep the excitement going, but we also had to finish in 3 hours, because at 3 hours and 1 second, Fox and ESPN were going to change the channel. They were going to go to the next programming. So we wanted to make sure we got done in 3, just because we didn't want to bleed out. Attention spans are a lot shorter nowadays in the social media era. But I think that, hockey style overtime would have been electric inside the venue. And it would have been loud, and it would have been totally different, and similar to how the Sky Cam was born from the original XFL in 2001. I would love for at least the kickoff to become a thing in all of football, regardless of what level: Sundays, Saturdays, Fridays, Pee Wee. Just because it's so much safer for the players, and it creates an exciting play. It's not, a breather for most of the offense or defense. Special teams guys, they want to get in on the action as well. So I thought the rules of the XFL were phenomenal. I thought it translated extraordinarily well on TV. It was even better to experience live. And I hope those are that same kind of innovative mindset carries over into the next version.
Nice. Yep. So once again, just an incredible job that you have done for St. Louis, for the Battlehawks. Once again, the team was a very exciting team to watch, something that we haven't been used to in a long time. Something that I wanted to ask you in regards to you being the president was, should I say, in regards to the rules. Something else that was kind of controversial was how players during the game would be interviewing with the sideline reporters, etc. Like right after a play happened, they'll go to that said player and get their thoughts about that play. How did the players take that? And was that something that was that the players agreed to do or wanted to do or were excited to do, or kind of like okay, yeah, we understand we got to be different because it's XFL?
You probably had both. But they knew going in that was going to be the case, and I think that was awesome. And you're already starting to see it. I mean, heck, was it the Cardinals Brewers game? They had a microphone on Paul DeYoung and the ground ball to short. And I'm like, stop talking to him. They used to say that for spring training games, exhibitions, like the NBA All-Star game, but now you're starting to see it in game, because that's what fans want, and they want that access. And Vince McMahon really wanted to showcase that access that fans don't typically get to see. The locker room speech at halftime. I think the coaching staffs probably had a little bit more angst than the players. But you got that raw emotion, and that's entertainment. That translates well. The dump button of, hey, is someone going to drop an F-bomb? We always, what's the over-under in the number of F-bombs? Oh, heck, just the over-under, how much the XFL embraced betting was something that was really, really, I think, ahead of its time already. And you're starting to see it more and more of sports commentators talking about betting lines during the broadcast. Now that was something that wasn't really normal before the XFL started doing it. So I thought that access, I thought the interviews were getting better as the season went on, but you showed that raw emotion. Case in point, the perfect punt Marquette's perfect punt in the first game versus Dallas in Dallas. And I can't remember the player's name, but he thought the Renegades player touched it, so he dove on it, and it ended up being a touchback. And Pat McAfee just like walked up to him, just like, "What did you do?" Like almost me, he was like, and he sat there in front of a national audience. I thought he touched it. Had he not had an interview, who knows how many "you moron" types of tweets would have been all in his Twitter timeline, and because he wouldn't have been able to get to it until an hour and a half, 2 hours later after the game ends. Mm-hmm. There, because McAfee was able to interview him, he was able to state his case. Like, I swear to God, I thought he touched it, and then it's over. Like, no more. And that's where the access really, I think, was extraordinarily beneficial. Is you just got that. Why'd you just throw an interception? How come you fumbled the ball? What made you fumble the ball? All of us think about that. Like, hell, I would have loved to interview David Freese as he's rounding the bases. Like, did you know that pitch was coming? Yeah. Nelson Cruz. How come you weren't playing deeper? Like, that is, I think that's part of the sports experience that fans are demanding, and sports entities will have to deliver on it, because especially now, post-COVID, fans are in complete control. Mm-hmm. You're going to have to co-author the experience. It's no longer a one-way communication. You're going to have to be innovative like the XFL was/is, and how you bring fans into the experience, whether they're in the venue or watching on TV.
You all definitely innovative with that, and I think it's only going to, like you said, more sports or teams are going to get on board, or more leagues, because a lot of the athletes, they use social media. That's our direct contact with them. We don't just have to wait on a regular standard interview. They're the ones themselves tweeting. So it's like fans are already interacting with them, whether good or bad. But for you to do it in game, it's only going to progress, because the younger generation, who's going to be the next athletes, whether XFL, MLB, or whichever sport, they're going to be used to all the social media interaction. So it's going to be more common and used to them. Like, you will have some players like, no, but I mean, it can be controversial now, but if you say be innovative 5 years from now, guarantee there's going to be some other leagues doing the same thing. I mean, you see it now with the NBA. They'll do the little interviews. Technically, the game is live, but they pre-record the interview on the timeout, and you see that, and you see them have the camera and the huddle and stuff. That's always segueing into the next thing, which will literally be during the game. They're going to have somebody talking to a reporter live while the game's going on. Forget the little delayed recording. It's going to be live. And again, it's going to be other things that we as fans may not see now, but you all are going to tell us this is what you all want to be entertained with your player. Like, your team is going to tell us this is the next thing. And we're going to be like, oh, yeah. That's why you're being innovative. That shows right there.
You're exactly right. I think the progression from, the Greg Popovich interviews, which are must-see TV, to what I mentioned before about, during the Cardinals broadcast, Fox National had that game, and they had mic'd Christian Yelich. I'm pretty sure it was DeYoung, and in the game on the last day of the season, where both teams were fighting to get in the playoffs, like that's now baseball is a little bit different, where you have stoppage in between pitches where you can use. Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I think you're eventually going to have, a hockey player, basketball player, football player wearing a mic during a game. It'd be like Hard Knocks, where you won't get you're definitely going to get it. That day is definitely coming.
Yeah. And for you talking about in-game betting, do you think are people on? Well, when the XFL was playing, were people betting? They had them on the books, right? For wins and losses. Okay.
They had betting.
Yep. Absolutely.
And in-game betting too, or just only for the win and loss?
No, in-game.
Okay.
And the broadcasters would say, if we start off as 10.5-point favorites, I think that New York game, that first home game at halftime, we would have to pay in like 23 or something. Yeah.
Okay.
And they talked about it. And I mentioned the focus groups of, would-be consumers. We actually had a lot of different types of fans. We had, teenagers, boys and girls. We had moms as one of the groups. And they were some of the most fascinating answers. That was the most fascinating focus group because peeking in, and their belief equation for Vegas. And it was. I mean, it's you're down 18 and it's a 2-score game. How do you do over-unders? Ironically, the league didn't score a whole lot of points. I think there's far more unders than overs the first half of the year. But I think that tide was starting to turn, as I mentioned before. But, just as much as the XFL was hand-in-hand partners with ABC, ESPN, and Fox, they were talking to, the MGMs, all the different FanDuel, DraftKings, because that's a massive permanent industry within the sports industry. And we embraced that. And it was an incredibly smart thing to do to build not just relevancy, but people were talking about us. They're talking about the Lions. They're talking about how we were embracing it. They're talking about Pat McAfee talking about it all the time. Like, it really helped keep us to the forefront all throughout the year, which led to the really good, I think, TV metrics that you saw.
Good.
Once again, this is the Platform Sports Talk Show. I am your boy Smooth, along with
Funny.
And we have special guest Kurt Hunzeker, and now joining. This is all about baseball and basketball. I'm sorry, baseball and hockey. Now we have Joe joining us now. Joe, how are you doing?
Doing good. How are you?
Doing well. Kurt, you have Joe. For this is our next segment called Joe Knows, in which we talk about, once again, everything.
Oh, wait, Baby Joe.
Right. Talk about everything baseball and hockey related. Now, do not be alarmed. She is right now rocking the Astros jersey because she loves the Astros.
She's reluctant that she's wearing it, but
Right. But
it's a little tight on me right now because I'm currently over 6 months pregnant. I just had to throw it on tonight.
But she does. There we go. Let's see. Make sure you can hear me. Can you hear me still, Kurt?
Yep.
Okay. I just making sure. Yeah. So once again, Joe, Kurt. There we go. Got the little introduction going on. You feeling with so much baseball going on today, Joe?
I loved it. It was a great, really honestly. Started off with the Reds and the Braves, which was a crazy game, and then the Astros taking that series, and then just, oh my gosh, just games all day long. Like right now, I put on the Dodgers and Brewers because it looks like the Yankees series tonight. So move on to the next one, but I'm enjoying it. It's literally probably one of the better days.
So this is the equivalent to how I feel about March Madness and basketball. All that basketball back to back all day.
And I've heard some of the announcers actually compare the two today. So yeah, it's been awesome.
Okay.
And Joe, earlier we asked Kurt what was his first sport that he fell in love with, and he said baseball. So when you heard that, what was your thoughts?
It's a good sport to be in love with. I feel like that's normal, honestly. I feel like that's a lot of people's first. It's just so easy, just like grab a bat, a ball, a glove, and just, play catch or whatever. So I think that's probably the reason why for a lot of people.
Yeah, most definitely. So Kurt, have you been able to enjoy any of the baseball games today?
I thought it was great when you see a game at 11, 12, 1,
Mm-hmm.
2, 3.
It's every hour.
And then, ironically, the game starts at 11 as well, the last ones to end.
Yeah.
It is the baseball purists are probably questioning 16 teams in the postseason.
Oh, now you sound like Joe.
No, but the Astros being the lone non-winning.
And the Brewers, they didn't have a winning record.
Oh, that's right. They already advanced to the division series. It's get in. It's survival. This is a totally different year. Who knows if they want to keep? I don't think they will keep this moving forward. But having 8 games in one day, that's not a bad thing to help grow the game of baseball with a new generation of fans.
That was actually my next question. Was the what is it? 16 total teams tournament. I know Joe. Last week you were saying, okay, this year you understand because of COVID and everything, but you don't want this to be a norm. I'm actually off of this today. I know yesterday you had the games, but just off of today, I'm not against maybe having this be.
Week,
I'm not against maybe having this be a norm every year, and I think it's kind of exciting.
Joe's a traditionalist. That's why.
I can see them and I can see and then enjoying 12. Something like that, but not 16 all the time. I mean, don't get me wrong. Today's been, like I said, freaking amazing. Just sitting here watching baseball all day long. Got off work early. It's been nice. If I wasn't pregnant, I probably wouldn't be able to do the show. I'd be drunk right now. It's just a great day.
Well, thanks, baby Joe, for keeping you sober. There we go.
Yeah. But it's been awesome. Not gonna lie, it's kind of like how hockey was this year too, though, in their bubble where there was games starting at 10, 11 noon. It was just fun watching hockey in the background while working. It was just nice.
Yeah, it is. And then, of course, as you brought Kurt brought up earlier, the Astros, they're in the playoffs, didn't have a winning record, but they defeated the Twins.
18 games in a row.
Already.
18 playoff games in a row. They can't win in the playoffs.
Already. So
they can't win for losing. No pun intended. Sheesh.
Right. So right now it's not updated because everything was happening while we had the show going on. But on the screen, I am showing the bracket, and the Tampa Bay Rays did defeat the Rays. Sorry, the Blue Jays. 2-0. So that series is over with. You're saying right now that the Yankees are looking pretty good. So that series may end tonight with the Indians. Once again, your Astros won that series sweep over the Twins. Then we currently have a tie between the A's and the White Sox. In the National League, Brewers and Dodgers are playing right now. Our beloved Cardinals won 5-4. They won against the Padres. Cubs lost against the Miami Marlins, so that was a nice surprise right there. And then the opportunity to win that game, and that was the Reds losing to the Braves earlier in a 14, 15 inning game.
13. Mm-hmm. To get 1 run, 13 innings. That's crazy. That pitcher was good, though.
Trevor Bauer pitched his heart out. I can't stand the guy, but the dude was dominant. And the Reds had 11, 12 hits. They had the bases loaded multiple times. They just couldn't get
that sounds familiar, like somebody's hometown team, doesn't it?
I mean, Cardinals scored 7 runs tonight. I don't know what you talking about.
In the past, we've been talking about all August that they don't produce runs or they don't know how to get people home to produce runs. So, yeah.
It's the whole NL Central, honestly. That's the NL Central. I think in all the playoffs, we have the 4 lowest batting averages as a team, but we went out today, scored 7. Cubs didn't. Reds did it, and who knows what the Brewers will be able to do against the Dodgers. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Anything could happen in the playoffs.
True. Ask the Minnesota Twins. Ask the Dodgers of the years past. Because they're always supposed to win and they don't. So,
And
Exactly.
and Kurt, outside of the Cardinals, is there a team to that you have your eye on that could make some damage?
Well, this is the hard part about the randomness of the brackets. My second favorite team to watch during the short season was the Padres. Mainly because in my previous job working in minor league baseball, I got to see a young Fernando Tatis both in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and San Antonio, and met him, and he couldn't be nicer. And obviously with his father and being on the Cardinals, and that's a team I enjoyed watching. Now they got completely bit by the injury bug, much in the same way I think Minnesota went down pretty quickly with Donaldson and Bruxton getting hurt. But I'm predominantly a National League guy. Even though I've lived in Tampa, I definitely couldn't name more than 5 guys in so I generally, whenever the Cardinals get bounced, I cheer for whichever team beat us. And so last year, we get knocked out by the Nationals. I was a very pro Nationals fan in the World Series. So if the Cardinals can't beat the Padres, then they may be my team for the rest of the playoffs. But it's a good start for the Cardinals, that's for sure.
Yeah, when they came out the first inning scoring runs, I'm like, oh my goodness. But I did say, them having those 2 days off is going to pay dividends, because now they can kind of go back to a regular baseball schedule and not having these crazy double hitters and not having no off days, etc. So it could definitely pay off for this Cardinal team. Who do y'all feel? And I'll start with you, Kurt, on the Cardinals. Who do you feel needs to be that dude to propel this team to go further in the playoffs?
You saw it today. Be right with Dylan Carlson. You gotta get something in the 4 spot. I don't know how you pitched to Goldschmidt in the first, but the fact that Carlson did what he did throughout the game, that bodes well, because now you do have, for however long, that protection behind Goldie. Pitching, I think, is still going to be there for him. I mean, I was scared to death of Flaherty not being able to maybe play in the postseason if Wainwright goes game 2, but now it looks like an awesome decision if it plays out. It's either he's got the ball and he's on the bump for game 3, or else he leads off full rest and then some for the division series. And getting that game 1 win is vital, especially in a 3-game series. So, hopefully they can keep the momentum going into tomorrow.
Bunny.
The player that needs to be the one that's doing it. Carlson actually finally has proven himself, but I told y'all earlier, you just give him some time. That going back down to the minors helped him out a lot. But also, what happened? Was Fowler injured a lot on and off? Because I honestly forget half the time he's on our roster. Like, he's there, but he's not there. Like, what is going on with him?
Oh no, he's back. He was hurt. He had to sit out for like 2 weeks because he had this condition. But he's back and he's playing every day. He hasn't had an off day since he came back.
Okay, so defensively he's fine. How's he doing offensively though? Because I still haven't heard him like do anything. Like, did they move him out of the from the top to the bottom of the lineup or something?
No, he's pretty much all season long been around the 6th through 8th spot. Today he was in the 8th spot, so he's gonna stay there throughout the remainder.
So he's at the bottom then. So in previous years he's always been at the top. So now they moved him to the bottom.
Oh yeah, that changed. Colton Wong took over that spot along with Edmund. So yeah, Fowler gonna be in the lower part of the lineup now. But he's slowly getting back into it. He had a base hit today. He just had to continue to get those at bats going because he's trying to come back from being gone for a little minute, and he didn't have no chance to go to the Springfield training camp. I mean, training to get his reeling back to going. together again.
Okay.
He had a couple good defensive plays tonight too.
Yeah, oh yeah, great play, especially on Tatis Jr. That was a crucial play
You
right
robbed him
there.
of a home run, borderline home run. Okay.
Yep. Joe, who do you feel?
I'm gonna say like the 4, 5, 6 hitters. I know like that's very big, but like Carlson, obviously, Yachty had 3 hits tonight, and then DeYoung had a couple hits tonight. And I've said last year,
okay.
yeah, I said beginning of last year, the lineup will be a lot longer and it'll be a lot better if Paul DeYoung can just take his at bats, have good at bats, not chase everything. And after he had that one day off earlier, I think like this past week or 2 weeks ago, he had one day off. He's been seeing a lot better, hitting the ball a lot better. So I think Paul DeYoung's like that key factor to the lineup.
Okay. And so tomorrow is, I know I heard that the Padres lost 2 of their good pitchers. They're not going to pitch this series at all. So the Cardinals have a high chance of winning tomorrow as well.
Yeah, they lost Clevenger and they lost Lamet. Lamet might be able to pitch the postseason if they beat us, but Clevenger sounds like he's going to be out for a while. He won't pitch at all this postseason, but they'll have Zach Davies going tomorrow. Okay. He's kind of had our number in years past, so I mean, it could go either way, honestly. He's one of those pitchers, you don't get why he has your number, but he's with the Brewers his whole career now. So we've at least seen him before, so we could hit him.
All right, well, let's go Cards. Let's switch gears and roll on to good old NHL and the new Stanley Cup champions. Tampa Bay.
Yeah, Big Rig, Pat Maroon, back-to-back Stanley Cup champions. And
I know, right? So that's the only reason I'm like not super sad, because he was a Blues player and he did help us win the Cup, but he's with another team now. But I wish that was the Blues, but you know.
Yeah. No, it was funny. Brendan was just showing me they had their little boat parade today. That's how they had their parade on boats, and he is sloshed right now. He's so drunk. It's hilarious.
Look, is he like the Brett Hall drunk?
I don't know. I mean, Patty Maroon last year was pretty drunk too, but right now he just looks fun. He's got like the old looking Miami type hat on, glasses, and they all have cigars and stuff. It's just funny, but yeah, I don't know. That was a good series between them and the Stars, but I'm happy Tampa won that.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, congratulations to Pat Maroon. He got back-to-back cups in different teams, but depending on what happens for next season, have they even said, like, I know NBA was talking about having their next season start on Christmas, but what about the NHL? Do they have an idea when they're going to start their next season?
I think I heard would be that stadium series of the Blues and the Minnesota Wild, which is
on New Year's.
Usually, yeah, New Year's. So that would be exciting. I'm pretty positive that's what would be starting the year off from what I've heard.
Okay.
Yep. Well, this has definitely been a once again, Kurt, we definitely appreciate you being on, giving us your love for sports, everything that you say on behalf of St. Louis. Thank you for everything that you've done for the Battlehawks and just for St. Louis as a whole. As I said before, we pretty much turned to media darlings in that professional football realm because of what the Battlehawks did to prove to everyone that St. Louis is a professional. See, we talked about MLS earlier. Do you see any chance, just from your perspective, do you see any chance of St. Louis possibly getting an NBA team in the future?
I wouldn't buy that stock. Not saying it couldn't happen. I think the dynamics in professional sports now is you're at a saturation point with professional teams. And if there's a city that probably is first in line for an NBA team, I would bank that Seattle is probably first on that list.
I agree.
In the proximity of Memphis, Indianapolis, or Indiana Pacers. I don't know if that helps or hurts, but if it happens, it's a long time, and you may even put Kansas City with Sprint Center ahead of St. Louis on the list, just because they don't have a hockey team, so there's a little bit more of an opening per se. I don't know. I think the Billikens are probably our basketball team, and considering how good they appear to be on paper for the upcoming season, that might be a good game to keep your eye on.
And I want to ask you this before. Do you feel like this season was the best managerial job compared to last year?
I mean, for the circumstances he had, I think he's done great. Obviously, I mean, I don't think you could have asked him to do any better than he did. He had so many kids make their major league debuts this year, a lot of them being pitchers, and we still somehow managed to make the playoffs. I mean, I know it wasn't pretty and it wasn't how people wanted it to be, but we still made the playoffs. So it's kind of like Mattingly, he just did what he could, and they're there too. So yeah, I mean, I think he's done great.
Yeah. Well, once again, this has been an incredible show. To all those watching for the first time, thank you very much. I hope that you give us those likes, those shares, the retweets. Go on YouTube, click on that.
Oh, it's on me. Click on that video.
I'm like, where you at, Bunny? Hold me down, Bunny.
I thought it froze for a second.
And we live.
You will be notified.
There it is. And tomorrow's show, another special edition, we will be having should I go ahead and say this first? Super Bowl 43 champion with the Pittsburgh Steelers and current head football coach at Hazelwood Central, Mr. Kerry Davis. He'll be joining us. Look forward to getting his perspective on everything football related. We're going to have another
Thank you, Smooth. Thank you, Bunny. Really, really appreciate it. Discussion. It's always fun talking about the team. Looking forward to using more present tense than past tense, hopefully in the near future.
Yeah, and as we said before, The Rock shouldn't have any problem saying, "Hey, Kurt, we want to get you back in St. Louis and continue doing what you're doing."
Thank you again.
And shouts out to Suzanne, Bunny's sister. She says, "Hey guys, definitely appreciate y'all for tuning in. We understand there may have been a few buffering moments throughout the show, and that sometimes want to act their own way. We just got to keep on trying to do the best that we can to provide you great content throughout the whole show. Once again, give us that follow, show us love. And with that being said, Joe, thank you very much once again. Probably be seeing you tomorrow. And
Go Cardinals.
right. And with that being said, this is platform
Becomes our business.
and business just picked up, and we are out of here. Peace. We out. Right.
All right.
We out.
All right.